Welcome back to Small Changes, Big Shifts. I'm Dr. Michelle Robin here with my co-host Bailey Sosa. As we talked about last week, I got a chance to meet Danny Ramos at my friend's Anita Dean Newton's house and learning about something I had no clue about, which is so fun. It's called Uncornered. I left with inspiration. I left with taking action. I left wanting to learn more. So I invited Danny to be a guest on Small Changes, Big Shifts and starting a series around meeting him around the courage to be your authentic self and how do you kind of step away from violence and to step into peace for yourself, your family, your communities. Danny, tell our listeners your story. It's so powerful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to just tell my story and talk about what a blessed life I'm living now. So, to make a long story short, grew up in Kansas City, downtown Kansas City, Kansas, off 10th and Central, if anybody knows that area. My father left the home very early when I was about 10 years old, which kind of left me with this void in my life, looking for guidance. No real male role models in my life. My mom, my grandma, and three sisters were the closest people to me at that time. And so I basically jumped into the streets, found gang life and everything that goes along with that, like drinking, drugs, violence, fights became guns. I picked up a gun by the time I was 16. I had killed somebody, was on my way to prison to serve a life sentence. Tell a 17-year-old kid you have a life sentence plus 6 years, and he basically thinks his entire life is over. So I just really picked up where I left off on the street. I always tell people, you're going to be who you are, which is why violence is such an inside shift. Whether I'm on the street, whether I'm on prison, that violence lives inside of me. And so I just kept doing exactly what it was that I was doing on the street. I had a gang member's mentality. There's gang members in prison. So I was committing tons of violence, ended up going to solitary confinement multiple times while I was in there. I did a total of 8 years in solitary confinement during my time in prison, just because violence was what I knew. I was a man committed to violence. At some point in there, 13 years into my sentence, the only person who had enough courage, had enough love to maintain a relationship with me and really believe in me and ever give me any indications that my life was worth more than what I was doing and that I could be somebody other than what I was presenting to the world was my mother. 13 years into my sentence, she was coming to visit one of the highest ranking gang members in the Department of Corrections, and she got diagnosed with cancer, which was for the first time in my life, I really started contemplating what it would be like to be all alone in this world. I really was living my life in total pursuit of advancement in my gang career, like I used to describe it, and just thought my life was over. But the prospect of losing my mom really, for the first time, shook me and made me look at what I was doing. And I started to have these thoughts and these ideas about what I had accomplished and what I had done. And right away, I started to feel some of the guilt and some of the shame of really never having done anything to make my mom proud that she could walk around and be proud of. And, the next 18 months, I talked to my mom every single day. I was in solitary confinement, which one of the silver linings, one of the hidden blessings of being in that cell 23 hours a day, 5 days a week, 24 hours a day, the other two, was that they put a phone in there, one of those little jail phones, because you never left the room. So they just put that in there for you to communicate with your family, turned on and off by some control they had. And so I got to call her every single day for the last 18 months of her life. And as me and my mom talked every single day, we got closer and closer, and she got more and more sick. And it's hard to describe that time with the power that it really had for me, because I never knew my mom in that way. I never called my mom and just talked to her. I never really spent time with her. And so it became like this guiding star for me. And she would tell me things like, man, I look forward to your phone call, son. It's helping me be brave. It's helping me be strong. It's helping me to just look forward to the next day because I know you're going to call me. And that was the first time I ever really had any purpose in my life other than being a gang member. I had this purpose of calling my mom every day and being somebody that she could rely on, a positive person in the world. And it felt great. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something that was good and that was worthwhile. And then as she got more and more sick, she shared with me. I just asked her one day, Mom, what are your hopes and dreams? If you ever had any? And she said, if I ever had anything, like a wish, it was for my only son to come home one day. And at that point, I was serving a life sentence plus 6 years. So I didn't know what that meant, but it hit me like a ton of bricks because I felt like she was wasting her wish, her hopes and her dreams on me. I mean, three daughters, grandchildren dying of cancer. She could have said anything, but what she said was she hoped that I would give myself a chance to live the type of life she thought I could live, and that I would give myself a chance to believe in something greater than the violence that I had like dedicated my life to. So she died and Thanksgiving morning, 2010, and before she did, I promised her that I was gonna give 110% of all my talents, all my efforts, like, all my strength to try to come home, and really, what that journey did was fundamentally transform me into a different like that quote, "The accomplishments of our goals, like, pale in comparison to who we become in the pursuit of them." And so I really just dived into anything that was available to me in there, and the goal was get out of jail. What happened was I discovered all these new parts of myself and all these new different people in the world who really invested in me and believed in me and gave me an opportunity to be somebody else. And like got out, ended up meeting my wife, dating my wife, marrying her, having twin boys, and eventually finding my work with Uncornered, which is like kind of my story to now.
Wow, what a powerful story.
Yeah.
I said as we were kicking off this series, I never know who Dr. Robbins brings to these shows or really where you meet them, but I'm glad that you're here.
Thank
And I know that you've got something for our listeners to hear today, especially I think as we're starting this conversation and really, diving into your story
Mhm.
specifically and the lessons that you've learned. One thing that I want to ask before we dive into the work that you're doing at
Mhm.
Uncornered is you said something along the lines of when you heard your mom's diagnosis, it was the first time that it hit you that you might have to do this alone.
Right.
And now since she's passed, you have then since been out of prison, you
Mhm.
have found community another way.
For sure.
How would you describe what your life looks like in community these days?
Oh, my life is full of people. So, like, from the time my mom died to the time I was released, that's a 10-year journey
Yeah.
it took for me to get out. It wasn't like, I changed my mind. It was 10 years of work and 10 years of convincing people that I was ready. And what that really meant was meeting a lot of people, being vulnerable for the first time in my life, being honest and opening myself up to what other people might have for me. And so I developed a ton of relationships with mental health professionals, with counselors, with volunteers that were coming inside of the prison to try to help man rehabilitate themselves and meeting other guys doing the same thing. And so, like, gang life, violent lifestyles are all about community. And so now my life is full of those other people that I met along the way, and then all the people that I've met, like, since I've been home and got a chance to do some pretty phenomenal work. Like, first off, like, working in transition centers, helping, like, men coming out of prison and jails, like, find their footing, develop plans, find resources, and figure out what it really takes for them to succeed. And then at Uncorner, where we work with active gang members in the belief that they're the only group of people in Kansas City and any really major city in America that can end street violence. And so now my life is full of them. Like, these are my brothers. I love them. Full of my colleagues, like, and coworkers, these other people that are working towards this really, really big goal. And faith is a big part of my life too. So my church family is also a big part of my community. And like the co-founder, co-CEO of Uncornered, Mark Culleton, we run a lot. Like, we run in the mornings. Like, he's a big climber. He doesn't get me out there as much as he wants, but like I get out there with him sometimes. And one of the things he told me is I have all these different people who are part of my life that give me different things. We can't depend on one person or one group of people to be able to give us the community support, the wisdom, like the love that we need. To put that on one person is really not doing them. It's doing them a disservice. And so I really try to like consciously fill my life with tons of people who can teach me. If it's not learning, it's not uncornered. And I live my life that way. So community is all these different people, but right now with the focus of like how do we get these active gang members to believe what we know is true, which is they're capable of what other people think is impossible things.
In your life and in your work, what do you think is the biggest contributor to gun violence?
I think people need like three things. Like, they need love, they need connection, and they need purpose. And so when you're living in environments where those things are either really, really shallow or non-existent, you find it where you can find it. I found mine in gang culture, and I think a lot of these guys find that in gang culture too. And in Kansas City, gangs are just small groups of friends and family, like between 7 to 10 individuals who are with each other every single day. And these are guys who like grew up the same way I did, open to violence, really, really, truly believing that violence is a part of life. I realize now most people in the world are nonviolent. When I was stuck in that culture, I thought everybody was like this, really. Violence is what happens when people don't understand something else. Violence is what I do to protect my family. Violence is how I get justice for the people that I love. So violence is this tool to impact the world around you, to protect yourself, to protect your family. And really, what these guys want more than anything is that they want to be able to protect themselves and their families. And then that cycle of violence that we all pretty much understand by this point, like one shooting leads between 7 and 10 shootings in retaliation. It just becomes this cycle that feeds off itself. And so it's really these guys thinking this is my only way to be in the world. And if I don't protect myself, who will? And I just want to be safe and I want to keep my family safe. And I also want to be somebody that people that love me can rely on. And it's hard for people who aren't violent to understand that, like, that's what it is ultimately, but it's about family and it's about connection and it's about using the only tool they feel they have to protect that uncornered. Operates like it's a great organization currently in 3 cities, four if you break up the metro area to KCK, KCMO, Boston, Providence, and the greater Kansas City area. And what we believe, though, is that by working with the 1% most violent gang members in any city, that you can create thriving cities. 1% of any major city commits up to 80% of that violence. So when you think of the return on that investment and the dividends that can pay, like we feel like this is a solution. We also know that like putting people in jail doesn't work because the number one indicator that you become a violent gang member is that somebody in your family or very, very close to you already was one. And so when that person is removed from the scenario, the next generation just grows into this belief that this is what my life is supposed to be. And this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And so what we do is we focus on the guys that are actively in violence right now. And we say, look, we think that you can do something that nobody else can do, which is in this. And we think that the way to do it is by loving them, believing in them, and asking them for their help to do it. And so we build our entire organization around what works for active gang members. And it's a very, very, very hard thing to do. Serve these guys. First of all, they don't trust anybody at all, including us initially. They always think we're the police, the same way I thought everybody outside of my circle was the police. And so we work a lot to find out who they are. And we do that by looking at the maps of where the violence is and hiring people who either are active gang members or like semi-active or recently removed from that, who have these deep, 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 deep connections into those communities. And we say, who is it that's driving all the violence in the Northeast? Who is it that's driving all the violence on the East Side or the West Side? Who is it that's driving all this violence up and down Troost and Paseo? And so they know, we don't know, but because they live there, they know. And we say, how do we form deep relationships with these guys built on love and trust and humility and curiosity? And once we do, we bring them into what we call a movement. And we say, look, man, we want to support you as you teach us how to end violence.
It takes getting into the community and actually hearing what they need. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned in this nonprofit space is you can develop programs that you think people need, but it's not until you're actually in there every day to understand how are they going to interpret this information? How is it going to resonate? How do we make sure that it actually becomes something that is long standing? And so I can't imagine going into it with people who are so closed off. We are blessed in the sense that they come to us very open-minded, are ready for the shifts, and you're going into environments where walls are up. And it takes a lot of time. How do you and your team stay grounded and remember that it's worth it in the end as you're trying to face this 1%?
The one thing is that like we deeply believe what we're doing. I mean, I love these guys because I was one of them, and through a lot of love and support and investment and opportunity, I've been able to have a new life where I'm living in my own home and married, raising my sons in a totally different world than I grew up in. We're deeply connected through love and belief. I think the other thing that we really do is like Mark and Michelle, our co-founders, co-CEOs, have built the entire organization on things like resilience, not prevention, learning, not impact. So it really frees us up to do the type of work and have the type of interactions that you need when you know outcomes aren't going to be super great for a long time, and it's going to be very few of them. And so we really have to remind us and everybody that we work with. We partner with a ton of organizations in the community too. And it's really because, I mean, I hate to say it so plainly, but nobody wants these guys around. They say they want to help them and they say they want change. And I understand why. In a lot of ways, they scare you. Like they make you very uncomfortable. Like you're just not used to being around what they living in every single day. And so when they walk into a building with a backpack and there's not books in it, or they have a ski mask on because they don't go anywhere and feel safe, this is how they live. Churches kick them out, schools kick them out, after school programs kick them out, YMCAs, everybody kicks them out because they have to think about everybody else who inhabits those spaces and needs to work. And we truly understand that, which is why we say we don't want to work with anybody else but them, because if we did, it'd be easy for us to kick them out too. So we're laser focused on them and only them, so that we can really give them the feeling that you're the only person that we want here. You belong here. And then we lend that belief and that trust to other organizations and ask them to customize any programming they do to fit what these guys are telling us they need. But it's just so hard because communities want to help, but they don't have the resilience and the courage to really stay close enough long enough. It was my mom that did it for me. Nobody else had the courage to stay that close to me. But we can't replace a mom or a dad, but we try to replicate like that love, that belief, that closeness. And so we just believe in it so much, and we know that they can do something that nobody else can do, and they're doing it. Like, they're doing it. The results are speaking for themselves.
Speaking of results, your mother believed in you.
She sure did.
She lends your belief. So did you say it that way?
Let
Lend
believe.
our beliefs.
That's what we need to do.
We lend them our beliefs. And so that's what we're doing on the show, Small Changes, Big Shifts. We're trying to give you some concepts, some ideas that you could plant in your soul, in your lifestyle that will grow through time. And so, Danny, tell us a little about Uncornered success. When I heard some of the numbers, I was startled. I don't have them memorized. So tell us how long has Uncornered been in Kansas City?
We've been in Kansas City since 2022 and really operating at scale, which we stipend these individuals every 2 weeks. Like, we give them $550 every 2 weeks to live and connect, and to let them know we believe in you so much, we want to invest in you first. And so that's 150 guys that we stipend. And in 2023 is when we really hit that mark. In 2022, Kansas City had 117 shootings, over 1,000.
The whole metro or just KCK?
Both KCK and KCMO. And so last year we finished 2025 at 700, 417 less shootings. And that's a huge number. But when you think about, that's over the span. And when you think about that, though, that's 400 less people shot, 400 less children who have to go to a parent or a brother being shot, mothers, teachers, schools, hospitals, counselors, every police department. So these guys are so valuable because they're really worth billions of dollars in the community, and also hundreds and thousands of hours spent on dealing with what gun violence does to our communities. And so 400 this year, January through May, is the safest in Kansas City since 2009. And I mean, you wouldn't know it by watching the news because there's still 700 shootings still. Right. Ton of shootings. But what we believe is, by this goal of like 25% reduction year over year, which is what Uncornered aims to do, and we've been at 22%, so not quite hitting that mark, but close, that by 2030, we can be one of the 5 safest cities in America. When we started, we were the 6th most violent in the country. Now we're the 18th most violent, with the belief that in 5 years, we can be the 5th, one of the top 5 to 7 safest cities in America. So the numbers are showing that this is working.
You mentioned that there's only 4 cities that are doing this. Boston was where it started.
Where it started.
Just give us a quick synopsis of numbers in Boston now.
Last year, I think Boston's numbers, I don't know them as well as Kansas City's, but they had about 115 shootings all year.
Wow.
24 homicides all year. And so Boston is now like the safest major city in America. Last June, 100 shootings in just the month of June in Kansas City alone. So when we think about where Boston is, and now the goal in Boston is to get to 0. We believe 0 is possible. And so we think, what does that mean really when we say 0? It means when violence everywhere is an aberration and not an expectation. If somebody shot in an area like this, aberration. Very curious about why that happened. In some areas, it's an expectation and nobody really cares. So we think 0 is that. When it happens anywhere, people are shot.
So how do people in the community either get involved or follow along with the work that Uncornered is doing?
I think the best ways to get involved, like, one of the realities of this work is it's very expensive work. And so, like, any type of investment that people are willing, and it's a very courageous investment, we acknowledge that. We don't try to hide that, but that's one way to get involved. Another way and we think this is even more important, is come visit us. Like, we really do think that when people visit our guys, it builds peace. They're not used to speaking with people outside of their strong circles of trust. And when they do, and people listen and people care, it changes what they think the world is and their place in it. And I think also just believing that this stuff doesn't have to last forever, and just really believing that these aren't sociopathic kids who don't care about everybody, but they're good young men who love each other and love their children and love their families and really are cornered in this lifestyle, hence the name. Our goal is to uncorner them. So just believe in them and don't demonize them, vilify them, and push them to the fringes. Be curious about why these things happen and not like judgmental or condemning. That's one of the most important things we can do.
Now you know why I invited me on the show. I don't know why. So Danny, I've got just kind of a two-part question, short questions.
Okay.
Your mom. Mom is sitting here on your shoulder right now. She probably is. What do you think she'd say to you?
She would tell me that she was proud of me, and she was never the type to say, I told you so. She would just give me a big hug. It'd give me a kiss and just tell me that she loved me. Like, that's what she wanted to do more than anything else. And I carry that with me every day. One of my good friends and mentors who I work with, he's probably the only really, really great dad I've ever like been friends with in my life. And he said, sons need more love than they do discipline, Danny. My mom knew that. So she would tell me she loved me again and again and again.
How has it made you a different father to your twin boys?
I think that's one of the ways. I just want to love on them as much as possible. And I want them to grow up in a world where they have so many different examples of what a man is that they can just live into their true purpose and not feel like I did, that you have to be X, Y, and Z, that you can really just be yourself and your dad's going to be here for you no matter what, and your mom's going to be here for you no matter what. And so I just love my sons. I think accountability and like correction and guidance is all very, very important. But overwhelmingly, I believe in loving them. And I want them to know that they're growing up in a world where their family just helps people and believes in people. And I want them to grow up feeling like they have all the power to do that, whether it's in their classroom, in the community, or anywhere else they go, that they're ultimately like leaders and that they're on this earth to help people and to love people. And so it's really just, they truly are growing up in an entirely different world than their dad did. When they hear my story one day, they're going to be shocked. And I'm glad they will be, because they'll know that the human spirit actually is limitless and that nobody's worth throwing away.
For our listeners, you can see the show notes, how to reach out and learn more about Uncornered. You can see that there's not a dry and the has fair. I want you to know that you matter. Community matters. You can see why we're doing this series now. Danny, you matter. Thanks for the work.
Thank you so much.
Join us next week as we talk with Carla, who is on the other side of first responders dealing with some of the violence and what difference she's making. And so you may be thinking to yourself, what difference am I making? You have inside you your own magic, your own seeds. And once again, it could be as simple as giving somebody a smile or hug. You don't know where that connection will go. So in the meantime, Bailey and I are sending you big heart-to-heart hugs halfway through a week. And so is Danny. And hey, we truly do love you. We see you. We know that the only way to get through life is loving yourself enough to let other people love you. Blessings to all of you. We'll chat, Wilson.